This conference will now be recorded.
And welcome to the July 2021 Evergreen Cataloging Working Group meeting. I am Jennifer Weston. I'm the facilitator of this group, and on behalf of the organizing committee, whose members' names you will see here at the top of your screen, we welcome you to this monthly gathering of catalogers and cataloging friends. Our agenda will be transformed magically into the notes from this session. So if you're new to joining our monthly meetings, what we'll do is this agenda is shared in advance and it has editing skills. So anybody that has access to the agenda prior to and during the meeting can add notes to it. And you may see notes being taken as we continue through our conversation today. And that's because we'll use the same document. You'll find the links to them on the wiki that'll say agenda/notes. And so that way we capture our conversations pretty quickly, and then it's shared on the same afternoon so that you'll get the notes right away. Our meetings are recorded, our cameras are turned off. We do comply with the Evergreen community recording rules. So in this case, we don't have cameras on so that we don't have to seek your permission to show you on the cameras. But all your microphones are available. We just ask you that you keep them muted until you have a question, and then you're welcome to unmute at any time. I mentioned before the recording started, we don't have an official program. There's no official presentation today. So feel free to just chat anytime you'd like. Primarily what we're going to be looking at today, and here's the brief agenda, the outline here is after our welcome and our usual general updates. We'll talk a little about program planning because we've got a program that we're very excited about in August to look at how libraries are handling alternative subject headings like illegal aliens. So we'll talk just a little bit in a preview way about that and maybe demo kind of as a preview to that, how you can use record queries to create record buckets to identify some of these subject headings. But again, that's going to be just a mini program. And then what we wanted to do as almost more of a business meeting or a brainstorming working session, any term you'd like to apply there, for the last half of this call is to look at our wiki. And I'd like feedback. And I think I found that doing this in a group is probably the best way. In the past, we've had ideas and I've made some changes to the wiki, and they'll come and say, how do you like it? But I'd really like community input before I start making changes this year. And it really is on our goal as an organizing committee to make that wiki as valuable to you as it can be. So that's going to be our summer/fall project. So with that said, we're ready to jump right into the full agenda. And you'll notice that the brief agenda just gives you a kind of preview so that we can take notes on the first one here. So welcome. I've welcomed you appropriately. One of the things I always like to celebrate, as many things as possible. We have an official celebrations agenda item on here, but one of the things I want to celebrate before we get there is the most recent release notes and the most recent releases. Point releases came out at the end of June. So we have 3.7.1 now, and you'll see these highlighted here. 3.7.1, 3.6.4, and 3.5.5 all came out at the end of June. The full release notes are linked there. The tabular release notes are updated, and this is one that's maintained by the cataloging working group for the Evergreen community. And what we do there is we take the release notes as they come out. We have a tab for each version of Evergreen if you haven't seen this before. So 3.7 is where it will open to from this link, but then you can go back to 3.6 and 3.5. And we kind of categorize because that's what we do as catalogers. We categorize the release notes and we put just brief descriptions and links out to each of the bugs. So if as versions continue, you think, oh gosh, when did, for example, the Angular staff catalog become the default? You can just do a quick search through our tabular release here. It's kind of nice. Just a different kind of view. The content comes right from the release notes. Nothing is editorialized there at all. One of the highlights that I would like to point out while we're celebrating a new release is here on our, let me move off of that so that link stops showing. On the far left column, when we identify the new release or point release, we've got links now to the Launchpad bugs in Launchpad. While we've got individual links on each bug with the description, this is kind of nice, and it's something I found late in my life apparently, or at least in my cataloging life there. And I've linked over to these because you can see all of the bugs in Launchpad in this list view, which is really nice. The tabular release notes are nice because you can look at the bugs individually if you want to, but it's kind of nice sometimes to just see them all listed like this. And it also tells you how much work this community is really doing, which is what I wanted to highlight today too, because gosh, there's been a lot since the last time we talked. There's a lot more that's already committed for 372. So I just wanted to point out that this is now available to you. I did not go back and retrofit this. So you have this for 3.7 and only 3.6. And I think that's as far back as we've done with adding these links to the full list of Launchpad bugs, but they'll be there for you going forward. And let me go back to this. Okay, so tabular release notes are updated. The full release notes are updated. We do keep one page on the wiki, and we'll talk about whether or not we find this beneficial when we look at kind of the wiki overview there, but we do keep a link there. So if you ever wonder what the most recent release is, we keep a list there. So the minute we find, well, the day we find out the release notes are available, I update that. And then of course there's a link out to the documentation menu, which is just a standard link there. I want to introduce this new idea, and then we can talk about it when we talk about Wiki. I don't want to pause now, but because I added the link here, I looked at this release table. I'm looking at the best way to present release notes for catalogers. We've got the full release notes, which give us the narrative, which is crucial. And we've got this tabular release notes where we're categorizing them. And I will admit that categorization may be subjective on my part from time to time. I created this thing this time with 371. This might be the first time anybody's really seeing it. I just took that list that I showed you how you can get to in Launchpad of everything that was in 371. And these are the tags, the columns are the tags that were assigned to the individual items. This is not me editorializing or deciding which category they should go in. This is just me highlighting the tags that were there as the bugs were being worked on. So that if we wanted to look at anything that was specific for this column G, Angular staff, Angular cat blocker, if we wanted to see the work that was done on those, you could find those pretty quickly from these columns. Thanks, Jane. I like checkboxes because it's easier to find. I meant to, and I will go back and do this also because we can put a filter on, kind of a true false checkbox there so that you can filter to just those that have anything checked on there. But I like this because it takes away trying to put things in specific categories when they might fit in multiple categories. Because as catalogers, we of course follow everything that has anything to do with the Angular catalog and cat blockers, but some of the stuff for OPAC and Bootstrap and documentation applies to us too. And sometimes that tabular format, I tend to, my eyes, even, as I'm part of creating it, my eyes still go to the cataloging part. This kind of helps me. I think it could be a format that could help us see that intersectionality of this work that's being done in the community, that it's not, we can look and see what's doing across the different modules, across the various tags that are being applied to, and also it shows how important those tags are, so that if you're working in Launchpad and you have you're reviewing things and you think that a tag might be needed, you can see why it might be, because this is how we search for things to see if fixes have been committed, is based on those tags in a lot of ways, because otherwise you can get lost in Launchpad in a minute. So I don't know, I'm just kind of floating that out there to see if people like it and to see if there's some revisions we can make to make this a valuable tool. I don't want to create things that people aren't going to use, but this is just another view. So again, we can talk about this with the wiki and see if that's an appropriate place to live there or not. So you've got the link out there, and I certainly would appreciate any feedback on this format. But I don't want to pause for the conversation right now. I'll make sure we cover that there. Okay, so that was our welcome and general updates. We had a lot going on in the last month. So thanks to everyone that was involved in testing and getting those point releases out for 371, 364, and 355. They look wonderful. Which then allows me to continue celebrating. And Chris Burton is with us today, so we can say thank you to him appropriately. Chris is the technology coordinator at Niagara Falls Public Library, and you may have remembered him. He was with us about this time last year, introducing the OPAC redesign, which is now sometimes affectionately called the Boot Pack because it's the Bootstrap OPAC. But he does a lot more than that too. So I would encourage you to read the full community spotlight announcement that came from the Evergreen Outreach Committee when they announced Chris being honored in this quarter. And I would just like to say hello to Chris and give you the opportunity to say hello back.
Hello. Boot Pack always makes me laugh now.
Good.
It sounds like something from Halloween.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm glad you guys like the updates that were made. Like you said, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, and especially between We started in version 3 when Webby just became, just became a thing. And there's been a lot of changes since then. I'm really excited for a possible, version 4 in the future when, all the Angular on the staff client is done. And even though I put forward a lot of work on the Boopack, there was a lot of people that went and cleaned up some of the stuff that needed to be cleaned up on it as well. So thanks to them, because after I took some time on that, I didn't have much time to go back and adjust things. So it was really nice to be able to have that support as well. But as you see with all the bugs and everything, the more you bug a programmer, the more they're bound to do something. My manager wanted to be able to place a hold in the OPAC on her phone. She's like, why can't I do this? Why is it so hard? So that's kind of what spurred everything. So, I mean, bug your programmers. Anybody that you know, put in tickets in Launchpad. The more support behind something, the more likely something's going to get done, right? So, yeah.
I was muted, but you will find me chuckling because I don't think catalogers have a problem bugging bugging programmers. So we're going to say Chris told us to the next time we submit a Launchpad bug going, hey, Chris said we should bug you. In fact, he said that's what Launchpad bug meant, that we should bug programmers. Well, Chris, you're getting lots of thank yous and congratulation notes in the chat too. So they are certainly most deserved. We appreciate all you do. We really do. And we'll continue to do, no doubt. And we thank your manager for bugging you enough to make you want to look into making changes.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a collaborative effort all the way through, a lot of, back and forth about what, should be the standard on the OPAC and whatnot, and then people cleaning it up afterwards. So it's been definitely a group effort, but I'm glad I could put forth a chunk that spurred some change.
And you absolutely did. So again, we thank you. And I think this is a perfect example of how you find something that needs a little attention, and I think that you found, I don't want to speak for you, but that it was pretty easy to get involved in the Evergreen community and that you had a lot of support in doing so.
Yeah, it was a little daunting at first because it is kind of a big project. And then you kind of realize that, nothing you do wrong can't just be undone. So you might as well try.
Right. And people will tell you. That's the other thing. And in a very constructive way, which is an important part of all of this too. So again, I think this has been a great example of how you just decided to jump in and then you just made it happen. And as you said, that it becomes iterative at that point. Then the community just continues to help build from there. So thanks again. We're glad you're here with us today, and thanks for all you do. Okay, moving right along. Speaking of community, as always, I've got the list of all of our sibling interest groups and working groups out there that are meeting routinely throughout the months and the quarters and the year. I think I have updated these dates accurately for the next meetings. I do like to remind people there is a community calendar that we all update our meeting notes on there. So if you're ever not quite sure what's coming up or you want to find out how to get linked in with some of these, I keep all of these links here on our agendas, but there's also a calendar that will give you another avenue to get involved in these groups. The links here to each of the groups will take you out to their individual wiki pages if you want to find out more about how to subscribe to their individual group mailing list, or I've got a link up there to the group mailing list as well if you want to subscribe to any of those. I'd like to pause here and see if any of representatives for any of these groups would like to advertise upcoming events. I know we're going to talk about bug squashing kind of briefly here in a moment, but outside of bug squashing, any of these interest groups want to advertise upcoming meetings and work?
Galen Troughton here. I do want to mention that at the acquisitions interest group meeting tomorrow, myself and Andrea Nyman will be doing a demo of the new Angular acquisitions administrative interfaces.
That's very exciting. And that's tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I'll find the link to that meeting and add it to our notes. Thanks, Galen. 3 p.m. Eastern, I'm sorry. Second Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, Andrea.
Time zones, what even
Right.
are they?
Exactly. I don't think my computer knows what time zone. I change it so much. Okay, we are development. I know documentation just had a meeting, so they'll wait again in August, but I think most everybody else is meeting later in the month from us. So thanks again to everybody who leads those and participates in the interest groups. We're moving right along. Launchpad, I hadn't really, Andrew hadn't really intended to spend a lot of time on this, and because we did last month. But one of the things I did want it to do, and I did that kind of quickly just before this meeting, so if you checked the agenda earlier and noticed it wasn't there, and now they are, is I've provided a few updates for bugs that we looked at in June. June was our last meeting. And thanks to Galen for making sure that I had this information that there are fixes that have been released, but there are several that have been committed for 3.7.2 and 3.6.5. So I wanted to make sure we provided those updates that are there. Just kind of how this is structured. We always have links out to just the cataloging bugs in general. There's nothing new about these two links at the top there that say cataloging Launchpad bugs. And we'll look at the wiki again in a minute to see if we find those useful, but in new Launchpad bugs. And we've started tracking the Angular staff catalog ones a little differently. But there you go. Without jumping into any of these, I just wanted to say again, thanks to everyone in the community that is providing feedback on these, that is helping to test these even outside of the regular bug squashing and feedback fest times, that it, the more information we provide as far as what we're seeing in the system, I think it's really helping too. I think the conversations have been very, very productive in the last little bit. And there's, again, one of the reasons I wanted to show the 3.7.1 is to show how much work has really happened just in 30 days and how much more we can look forward to for 3.7.2. So without spending any time on any of these individual bugs, I don't know, Galen, if there's anything else you wanted to say about these specific bugs or about the work being done for 3.7.2? To put you on the spot, I'm sorry, I didn't warn you.
No worries. Yeah, it was just desperately, trying to take up the unmute button. I think the primary thing I want to say is, first a shout out to Bill Erickson for initiating work on a number of these bug fixes. But also to point out that there's going to be and is a lot of stuff where active testing, both during Bug Squashing Week and Feedback Fest, but maybe also outside of it, would benefit from a lot of CWG member eyes before the 3.8 release. And specific things include the latest iteration of the volume copy, or I should say call number item editor, the acquisitions at work, which at the moment includes both the administrative work that Equinox recently finished, as well as the work that Bill has done on putting parts of the PO line item and selection list interfaces to Angular, as well as some additional follow-ups on that that we're expecting over the next a few months. And to say nothing, of although this is starting to veer outside of technical services, work that Bill's doing on Angularization of patron and circulation interfaces. So, upshot, there's going to be quite a bit to look at, including for the 3.8 cycle. And I think this is basically my plea for y'all to cast your gimlet eyes on this stuff, and also that would be making sure certainly as part of a bug squashing week and feedback fest, but I think also outside of those specific periods, a expected will be pointing out putting up test systems so that y'all can see what's coming down the pike. I think it's fair to say that collectively trying to catch more of this stuff sooner than was done with the Anchor stuff, and catalog would be a good thing to pursue.
Absolutely. Thank you, Galen. We appreciate that. And we on the organizing committee will do our part in identifying these bugs and sending them out for discussion to the cataloging listserv as well. So we will monitor these and try to encourage that testing and conversation. So thanks again. That said, that leads us to bug squashing weeks. As Galen said, a lot of testing is going to be done outside of the regular testing windows, and it will behoove us to monitor that as well. And again, the organizing committee will do that and prompt you to review some of these bugs outside of bug squashing weeks. But we do have bug squashing weeks coming up in August and September. Feedback Fest will be August 9th through the 13th, which just happens to be the same week we will meet in August, and then bug squashing week in September. And since Taryn's here, I will stop talking and put you on the spot as well and ask you if you want to say a word or two about how folks can get involved, since you've made this so easy for us.
Hi, everybody. If I think a lot of you have participated in bug squashing weeks before, but for those of you who haven't or who haven't in a while, what we do is we set up a set of test servers. For Feedback Fest, we will set up test servers that have the next viable candidate installed, or so that it can be tested. And we'll also install some bugs that need to be tested that have patches that are ready to test. But mostly the focus will be on testing for the new version to make sure that nothing is broken. And then bug squashing week will be the same thing, but we'll focus more on testing patches that are ready to test. And the sooner in the week that things get tested, the more likely it is that we'll be able to refresh that test server with an additional set of patches. So the more people involved, the better. It's a great time to participate, because you do not have to necessarily know the code. You don't have to have access to your own test server in order to participate. You just have to know how the system should look, how it should function in order to participate in testing. And I will send out more information with details to the lists ahead of time. Does anybody have any questions?
Wonderful, Taryn. Thank you. It really is the best way to, and easy is not a word we should use, but it is the way to be involved in testing that doesn't require you, as Taryn said, to have your own server to be able to load these things up. So it's done for you, and so all you have to do is test it out. Low barrier. Yes, Andrea, thank you. It's the lowest barrier that you will find when it comes to testing. And as always, Taryn will send out a notice to the listservs when Bug Squashing Week begins, when Feedback Fest begins in early August. So we look forward to that. Thanks again, Taryn, for everything you do to enable us to participate. And that kind of does it for Bug Squashing Week. I wanted to talk just briefly about our program for next month. We were going to try to do it for this month, and we just said we needed a little more time to prepare, just to be very honest with you, about these alternative subject headings, because there is so much content out there to be mined, to be able to share with libraries around the, libraries everywhere, but most certainly across the Evergreen community, are starting to look at ways that we can handle replacing or supplementing terms like illegal aliens, and that's where we will start, is with that term. But of course, if anytime we start talking about providing alternative subject headings, and we say alternative, we're going to mean outside of the officially sanctioned Library of Congress subject heading. I'm going to be working with Janet on, well, and actually Janet's going to be doing the presentation for you in August. I'm just going to be putting together the outline in general. And I know that several other libraries and people that are here on this call have already done a little bit of that work as well. So I'll be reaching out to kind of coordinate getting examples of things that have already been done in libraries, and talk about also the processes that people have gone through in making the decisions about how they wanted to handle these changes in their local catalogs. So that's what you've got to look forward to in August. If anybody has an experience they would like to share and would like to be part of that presentation, those are two different things. I didn't mean that as a communicative thing, but if you have an experience you'd like to share before that presentation and want to send that to us, we would certainly appreciate it. If I don't tap you on the shoulder metaphorically, in the next week or so, then please do so. Please reach out to us, because we would absolutely love to hear what you're doing in your libraries, or just the questions that you have about how you might go about doing this. Because what we're going to do is provide as much information as we can about what we've seen and what we've heard is happening, and the process, of course, that Janet's going through now in her library. One of the things we thought we would do, since we don't have a full program here, is we wanted to look at this record query from record buckets, because one of the things you're going to want to start with, regardless of the way you think about tackling subject headings, is being able to identify your records that have those particular subject headings currently. And Janet, Mary, and Elaine, I know that we've just been sharing emails back and forth, so if there's anything else you want to add, I'm going to do a very, very quick demo here. This is on the community server, so this is one that's out there for anybody to access. And this is on 3.7.0 to be exact. So if you wanted to just search your catalog, you can of course just do your regular search through catalog and search the catalog and look for the subject heading of illegal aliens, but then you end up with just all of your results and the, just bib record by bib record that you can go through. And I know you can put these, I believe Mary was saying that you could put these in a basket that way. I'm going to demo how to do it in a bucket first though. So if we go to just record buckets, this is something I don't think we've demoed here before, at least not in our monthly gatherings. I know we've done this at a conference or two. But if you wanted to set up a bucket, and I've got one here, just subject headings to review is what I'm calling this one. I'm going to create a new one for today. I'm just going to do just the CWG review. So you just go ahead and create your bucket, and that way you have a vessel for storing your records once you find them. So you just use your regular query terms here, and I say regular, I mean, there's documentation on the various search parameters you can use, but so subject headings is just SU. If you were looking for title, of course, it would just be TI, author would be AU. So if you wanted to do this kind of search outside of just your regular advanced search, this is the way you would do it. So if I'm looking at subject headings, I'm going to look specifically for, now I am using the community server, so that we're not going to get a lot of results. And if I could spell and type, hold on. Yeah, I had to stop talking so I could type. There we go. We're not going to get a lot of results because it's our community server, but there you go. So I just get the two, and that's what I expected. So it just searches those subject headings. Specifically, it's not a keyword search. So it's just doing this. I get two results. And from here, I really like how easy this is. My biggest challenge has been, I now have a cheat sheet, of course, to know what the terms are for the keywords. So when I said of course, I say of course because I have a cheat sheet that I look at. But so I just need to know how to find title, author. You can also have combinations of searches. So just to take advantage of the fact that we're looking at this now, it's not specifically relevant to the illegal aliens conversation, but just we could nest things there if you wanted to look for title and author. That's what you can do that, in a combined search here, which is nice to know. You just do those with really a comma in between them is all it would take. But I digress just a little bit, but it's for the good of the order. Okay, so when you get your results here, I need to change that out. You can change the number of rows that you have. I only have 2, but just to point out that that's one thing you can do there. You can select all of these, and then you have a couple of options. You can add depending if you wanted to review them before you put them in the bucket, or you can add them directly to the bucket. So you can see even if you don't get a little success note out there, if that went by too quickly, you move to pending, or you can move directly to the bucket, or you can move to bucket from the pending. This beauty of buckets. So now they're here that I can come back to at any time. And this would give us an idea. And I think on the latest database that I was looking at, I think we had less than 1,000, but more than 500 results that I was playing with a little earlier today, and was able to move them all over. Elaine, I believe you said that that's a library setting, right? That we can control as far as where your limits on your buckets.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not exactly sure where it is, other than it's not in library settings. It's somewhere where sysadmin has to go and do it.
Okay.
But you can set it. We did ours. We limited it to 10,000 since that's the.
Okay. You don't want to completely overwhelm it.
Right. We were, although I have issues with the search being limited. We didn't want to overlay. We didn't want to cause any issues with this.
Sure. We'll find where that is unless somebody else knows and wants to drop in the chat. Again, we were just having that conversation just before this call, so we'll find that. So if you find that you don't think you're getting all the results that you want to, if you think they're hitting a limit, that's probably true, but that limit can be changed. So this is kind of nice to know that that's another way you can do this. And also the nice thing about buckets is they're there for you to come back to and review. Now, if you decide to do some, a very quick change to these, and we'll talk about what your options are for doing this. You can batch edit, of course, in record buckets. That's one of the primary purposes of using record buckets, is because you'll want to make some kind of batch change. Whether or not we can do that precisely how we want to with subject headings, we will demo next month. But we did want to provide just a little preview so that we can skip directly into more of the content next month, when we're going to look at really more procedural things as opposed to workflow and how you identify the records here. So this gives you a quick option for doing that. And it's also, maybe an insight into how you could do this for really anything that you're looking at kind of monitoring and making changes to, whether it's this kind of subject heading or making changes to a MARC record for any particular kind of item that you can identify through subject headings, or either title, author, series. For example, if you want to update series, you could search this way too. So any questions or anything anybody wants to add about that? I wanted to add, Mary, if you wanted to talk about you said you'd use baskets to do this as well.
Yeah, I discovered in the Angular catalog, there's an entry under baskets for exporting the record.
Okay, let's look at that too here. So let's do the same search I just did, but only do it through the Angular catalog, just regular search there.
Select them and then go to baskets.
Basket actions.
Yep.
Nice.
And there you see export records.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to go by way of the bucket and its limitations. I was able to export. I had pages and pages of it, but I just selected everything on every page, and I was able to export like 2,000 records.
Nice. And then, not to give anything away, but then that's how you were able to, then you just change them, use MARC Edit, and then you could bring them back in.
Open them in MARC Edit and did my changes there, and then reloaded them.
Lovely. Very nice. I think we all appreciate the fewer clicks that are needed. Very, very nice.
And then you don't have that exasperation about your bucket can't hold too many titles.
Sure. Absolutely. And I only have the 2 examples here, or I would show how you could do it but with multiple pages, but yeah, so people can play around with that too to see how that works. Very nice. Yet another option, and this is all relatively new. And well, and the add basket to bucket is also new. So you could do all of that, but then also save them in a bucket. You could do both.
You could do both.
You can.
Well, and I think isn't there a bug wish list item requesting to be able to select all of the items in a search and not have to go page by page?
Yes, I do believe so. Yep, and Ruth's confirming that as well. So right now our workaround is to do that, kind of go to the record bucket and do the query from there. That's kind of our workaround to get all of the results on one screen, or at least in fewer pages than we have to do now to move these. But it's really nice to know that you can just export them directly from here too, if the plan is to export them and not change them inside here too. Yep, so once you've decided that there's action that you're going to want to take, the query would just, this query would give you the results just like the one that we did from the bucket, the record query bucket, to give you the kind of scope for how many records you're going to be talking about too, which is probably a good starting place for this kind of project. It's just to see how big it really is in your catalog. Yep, and Ruth has provided in chat with us the bug for that. So I'm going to copy that into the notes and then make a note about what that is later. Again, and I'm trying to type in for query for results without pagination, results without having whatever. Do okay. You know what? You're going to know what that means, and I'm going to fix it later. Okay, there we go. So that's it really for that. Like I said, we look forward to August, and we would look forward to anything you want to share with us about what you're doing in your libraries already. One of the things that we've been looking at is a lot of the information that came out of ALA, and I know that there was a resolution that came out of that too about how to proceed with alternative subject headings without the Library of Congress actually issuing any kind of new official headings. So it's nice that that resolution had lots of links to various resources for us too, just kind of some background information if you're going to need that for your libraries and for this conversation within your libraries and your governing boards. Okay, so anything anybody wants to add as we prepare for August before we spend our last 20 minutes or so looking at the wiki? Okay, feel free to jump in anytime. Let's go up and find the link to the wiki. Okay, let me move this out of the way. I am just going to kind of try to go page by page, and what I'll probably do is I don't want to flip back and forth to take notes, so I'm going to jot those down on paper and I'll update our notes afterwards. But I wanted to start here on this screen. I know that I don't have all of the interest groups listed here that I had before. So let me ask this question. This is kind of our landing page. It's technically not our landing page, if I'm being very honest. This is our landing page. But if I want to have this kind of presentation for you so that we can see the toolbar, the navigation toolbar on the left, this is the best way I know how to do this. In no way am I suggesting it can't be done. I'm just saying this is the only way I know how to do it, is to have that main page, and then I created this other one that really kind of just gives you the framework there on the left. So that said, that's the reason we have two pages, if you've discovered that, a main landing page and then the real main landing page. So on here we have the link to the please register. We have our dates. Do we find this information helpful? So I've got links, subscribe to the list, our meeting agendas and minutes, our organizing committee, and then Launchpad Bugs, which doesn't take you to Launchpad. It takes you to this resource page over here in the calendar. And then we've got some general documentation. I think, well, we've got some general documentation, and then the Connect. So first question, is this Catalogers Connect helpful, or do you think it should be a different page entirely, so that I can put in on the wiki what we want, what I include in the agenda? Do you think this would be more helpful in the wiki? Because right now all I do is just link out to the interest groups.
I appreciate having them either way, as long as I can get to it. I mean, the way you have it in the agenda seems a little bit more comprehensive, I guess. But like I said, either way I can get to them, I appreciate.
Okay. See, one of my thoughts was, because I'm putting this on the agenda every month anyway, it might be handy just to put it on the wiki, and then I could just link to it from the agenda, and I don't have to, because I wouldn't want to put it in two places. And I think that might be helpful, because then people don't have to dig up the most recent agenda. So I'm thinking about moving this over to a new page then, as long as we find it valuable being on there. Maybe I'll do that. I want to pause. Galen answered our question about the basket size on the OPAC is controlled by a server-side template variable, and he provided what that is. And Ruth has asked a follow-up question about the default max card size. So we'll stay tuned for that conversation. Okay, beyond this, Jennifer Pringle, would it make more sense to have a more central page with a list that all interest groups could link to? Yes, it would. that's a great idea, because I do find myself thinking that this is something we should share outside of the group, which is probably one of the reasons I have been putting on the agenda. I absolutely think so. Now, where that would be, I don't know, but I'll find out if there's a better place, and then we could just link directly to it. I love that idea. All right, no more central. Because I know on the website, there is a page, which is the outreach committee. We didn't really talk too much about that, but the outreach committee is undertaking a project in the next year or so to kind of rework the Evergreen website, which is different than the wiki. So that might be a place where that could live. Instead, I will talk to outreach committee, and Andrea's here to remind me of that, to start trying to find a good place for that to be. All right, the conversation's continuing in chat about the limits on baskets. I'm just going to encourage everyone to monitor that, and I'm going to continue our conversations about the wiki. Let's see, other questions I had. Organizing committee is there in case you want to get in contact with any of us. So there we are. The meeting agendas and minutes, I have an idea that, while it's nice for us to always be transparent and make our meetings and recordings available, I got two questions. One is, I am thinking it might be good to tell us in a column here what the meeting was actually about, or at least the primary purpose of the meeting, whatever the program was. That would take me a while to go back, or at least I could do this year. Again, I don't want to do things that people aren't going to find them useful. So, okay, Ruth, that would be helpful.
I
Well, I feel like they're already on the agenda, which is on the same line, and that seems like a lot of work for you. I mean, I don't disagree that it wouldn't be helpful, but
yeah. See, I'm wondering if, because I don't want to go back. Honestly, I don't want to go back through and do a lot of it. But if we did it going forward, it really wouldn't be that much. It's just when you update that line, you just throw in a program title, and there you are.
To at least mention what was demoed would be helpful.
Right. Yeah. So, and again, anything we put here has to be sustainable, and and we do have a committee that helps with this sort of thing. But yeah, it would be helpful to see the demo topics. Okay, that would be good, because embedded in our agendas and our notes, our minutes, are some really great videos too, because we do record these, and so that but we don't index them, and we don't try to say, at minute 25 into the video, you'll see a great demo about something. But we could say what was there.
would it then make it searchable on the wiki?
I think so.
Yeah, that's pretty helpful then.
Yeah, I will verify that, but I am fairly certain that it does become searchable if I just put it in a column there. Okay, and again, this work we're talking about would be, we're in summer now, summer and fall project. So yep, let's make them, we can just add program descriptions there. Right now, all those videos do not live in the same place. That's also just kind of behind the scenes sort of thing. We do have, because we have a shared calendar, we have a YouTube channel for the cataloging working group. I am working with Roga and Hamby to move these over to the primary Evergreen YouTube channel. So again, that'll be kind of behind the scenes and to update these links. That way they live, they're a little more discoverable, and they're a little more centralized, since Evergreen does have its own YouTube channel. And I don't know how far back we want to go with these. I can just move some of these off to older recordings now that we've been doing this for well over 2 years. And well, we've been recording them for well over 2 years. The community's been working for a lot longer than that. But do you think just 1 year back is enough? I don't want to do a rolling year, because that means moving everything. But so like right now, all of 2020 and 2021, is that enough? And then move the others off to a previous meeting notes, or do you just want to keep adding to this list without separating them?
As long as they're available somewhere else, in archived recordings or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think the current calendar year is
okay.
Just fine.
Yeah, because I can just put a previous meetings link there. Okay, I'll do that and then just update it once a year. Okay, I can do that. Andrea tells us wiki search is pretty terrible. Okay, there you go. We'll see what we can find. And I also wonder, okay, anyway, I'm going to make a note about searching. I'll make a few changes and then see what happens with searching. Okay, so that's kind of it for meeting notes. I'm kind of working my way down the left here. I also want to ask what's missing. Under resources, I can tell you what's missing, and that's community. I'm going to go back to the homepage here. That is community resources. Those that several of you generously have volunteered over the course of the last 2 years, and then again at the most recent conference, that you would share your materials, your training materials for your catalogers. And I have those links for those of you that said it was okay to make those available. I'm going to add another tab here, another page for community resources to do that. So if anybody out there has anything that they are sharing actively now on the web and they wouldn't mind us linking to, I know I've made that call before, but this time we're going to find a home for them. Would really appreciate it if you would send them to us. It would be good work for a summer intern, Tricia. Absolutely would be. But so we're going to do that. Evergreen conference presentations woefully needs updating, and I absolutely acknowledge that because 2019 was the last thing that's on there. So yeah, I'm going to take this page down because outdated material sometimes to me is just says too much about the fact that it's not recent. So we take that down because you can get to all this from the Evergreen website. And I'm trying to cross-reference as much as I can and without recreating it here, but also I like for the cataloging group to be able to get here. So one of the larger themes here, I think, is from the Evergreen Conference Committee and several others. It would be nice if eventually at one point we could have all of the programs in one place. It's just as far as descriptions of each of them that's searchable without having to go year by year by year, but that doesn't exist right now. So I'm going to take this off until I can update it and at least get us out and over to each of the years going back. And as the work on the outreach committee proceeds over the course of the next year, I'll make sure that we're linking into everything that's preserved for the conferences. Presentations, it would be nice at some point, and if anybody wants to help with that, please let me know. If anybody has time and capacity to start kind of scrolling through these presentations and see which ones would be, kind of beneficial and of interest to catalogers, we could start pulling just those out, but I would certainly want to delay, adding anything to the website until we're certain we could do that. So, save that. Yeah. Yeah, and Andrea's right. Her dream project, I think we could all get on board with, a searchable index list of collected conference presentations. Sounds lovely. We're going to start with anything in the cataloging world that might appeal to us. We'll start with this year and then slowly work our way backwards, I think is the best suggestion I have there. Let's see. So I'll take that down and then update it at least with links to the years. Bug squashing, obviously that date's wrong. I need to update that, but these link there, and I'm not going to do I wouldn't suggest we do a lot more there because Taryn does a great job of maintaining the primary bug squashing pages. I don't know if there's anything particular for catalogers. If I know that there are particular presentations that we could link to now too about Launchpad and bug squashing. So I will go back through this year's conference and last year's conference and include those. And yeah, I think that's probably it for bug squashing. Again, because there's already great material, we don't need to recreate the wheel. I just like to make sure we're linking to it. And Launchpad Bugs, I'm not convinced this is the best way to do this. We have talked at various times about kind of keeping track of the Launchpad bugs, and you'll see that on the Angular staff catalog. We did that too for a while. Kate, you were doing an excellent job, and I think you've got your own list of bugs as they're released, keeping track of those, and I did a very poor job of maintaining the wiki at this point, which just points to it wasn't very sustainable for me to continue to do that. But if it's a valuable thing, let me stop. Is it valuable for us to pull out specific bugs that were released and list them here at this point in the Angular staff catalog progression and the evolution? Because so much has happened in the Angular staff catalog. Would we want to have any kind of place, if this was updated, for maintaining more recent releases to draw people's attention to them outside of these meetings? Put them on the wiki.
I hate to be the only one talking, but the Launchpad bugs get very overwhelming, and we all know that the search capabilities in Launchpad don't seem great.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Sometimes it feels like I can't find anything, and it seems like it would be certainly helpful, but also time consuming to be able to get them all and not miss them. I don't know. It's kind of a non-answer.
No, well, it's helpful to me because it just helps to talk through it. Because I know, and this was your list from the beginning. And when I started adding them here, I thought, what a great idea. I think there's some subjectivity to it sometimes because if I put everything that was related to Angular Staff Catalog, this list could go on and on. But if we get the big things, maybe. But then how you decide big? I agree. I mean, just as you said, Launchpad can just be overwhelming. And even what we're doing now with the tabular catalog is really good for searching if you're trying to remember what happened when, but not necessarily to keep up with, the things that are changing in the Angular Staff Catalog. I think I'm going to have to work on this a little more because my gut tells me that there's some value to pulling out important bugs for ones that have been releases, and then the other thing being ones that need conversation. And that's the one thing that we don't have on here, are those that need conversation. And I'm going to kind of just leave that as kind of a, if people have suggestions for that, I would appreciate it. If there's anything you're already doing for your library, please let me know, because recreating wheels is not something we want to do. Anyway, I'm going to redo this. I know some of these videos are older and we need to take those off. We do have the history of the Angular Staff Catalog presentation that Bill and Andrew helped me put together last year. So I'm going to leave that there for a little while. It's not too dated. And we do have some videos of some cool things, just like Launchpad and bug squashing. Several of you have done some really great presentations on how to use Launchpad and how to participate in bug squashing. So we'll keep those there. I guess we're going to think on that one a little bit more about the best way to do this and how to do it as a community. I guess I would say, and one of the things we talked about is if a Launchpad bug comes across the listserv, then it's worth putting somewhere on the wiki. If it's about things that need conversations and trying to find a place to track those, or even pulling out of our notes. Like this time I went back and looked at our notes from last month and pulled them over and provided updates for this month, and those will live on our notes. But then you have to go through the notes to get there. Okay, I'm talking in circles about that. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to think out loud about the best way to do Launchpad and keep us something that prevents all of us from doing the same kind of searching through Launchpad. If we could find some synergy in this to keep us from all having to go through the same process of finding these bugs. Now we do have on this page, on the Launchpad Bugs page here, we have links to each one of these so that they kind of do the searching to some extent. It just allows you to search by tags. So they're quick links for these things. And I found that all of these tags still have, very active bugs there. So I can't really say, I looked at even Z3950, there are quite a few that are still open out there. Okay, I'm going to leave that where it is. The latest releases. This is the question I wanted to ask about. Is this actually valuable? This is the thing we started when we first looked at tabular release notes, and it's grown quite a bit. I don't mind doing it, but is anybody actually using it? Be honest. I can move it off if it's just not adding any value.
I absolutely use it.
Okay. Well, if one person uses it, that's good enough. Oh, and Chrissy, you're right. They did move web staff client off as a tag. So I need to take that off of there. Thanks. Yeah. That definitely needs to come off of there. Of course, now it could be, because we've got Angular and cataloging, we don't need that one anymore. Thanks. Okay, so we'll use latest releases, and it doesn't take just a minute to update that one. Still got the link out to the downloads. I don't have on the sidebar here, the navigation menu, I don't have links directly to documentation. I think that would be helpful because it only lives right now on the home page. I've got this documentation thing here. So I think maybe it would be helpful to have that over here on the left so you can get to it from anywhere you are in the wiki. I think I'll make that change. So the biggest changes here is I'm going to move documentation over. I'm going to move the interest group list over to its own tab. And then I'm going to ask for community input for any resources you want to share and add those. We've got some out-of-date stuff I need to work on. So those are some pretty key things that'll help here. If you have, I guess one of the things I'm trying hard not to do is you've created a lot of you have created a lot of material already for your libraries that deal with cataloging. not necessarily in Evergreen, but about cataloging standards, whether they're content standards or display standards. And I'm really not putting a lot of time and energy into that, or we're not as an organizing committee, even though they're very relevant to us, but I feel like a lot of that exists already in your libraries and best practices and kind of local interpretations of content, that sort of thing. So we're purposely staying away from that. But if we find that linking out to something like RDA and in time, BibFrame, that kind of thing, if we thought that would be valuable, we're not against doing that, but we also want to make sure that we know that people are approaching that in different ways. And if it's not an Evergreen specific kind of content, it's the reason it's not there now. So there's conversation to be had there too about cataloging standards outside of Evergreen if we would want to link from here, or if you think you've got that covered in other places, because there are lots of places you can just Google standards, and my goodness, there's so many to be found. So I just wanted to leave that there too. I want to humor you for taking time with me today to go through the wiki. I think it's very helpful to kind of talk through this out loud, and especially when it's a tool that we want to be available for catalogers and for anybody that might be new to cataloging and not yet participating in our group, in our monthly calls. But so if you're finding documentation that you find very helpful and you think others would too, you can send it my way. I'll be glad to help. Add it to the wiki. If anybody wants to participate in updating the wiki, I am not a person who minds asking for help. So if you are interested in doing such a thing, let me know. And I will make sure that we collaborate appropriately, and we can just divide it up and make changes as we go along. So that's all I have for today. Anybody have anything else they wanted to talk about? Let me go back to the notes here, and again, I'll update notes quickly here. Okay, and thanks for clarifying web staff client shouldn't be on there. I'll take that off. Community discussion, our next meeting is August 10th, and it will be about alternative subject headings. So a couple of takeaways for the community. One, if you have any questions or updates about how you're handling alternative subject headings or how you might want to, please send them away. Two, look for the listserv, because as we find bugs that need discussion, as we look towards 3.8, we'll make sure everyone is aware of those to the extent that the organizing committee is. And lastly, wiki updates, any changes you want to make on there, please send me anything you'd like to share. That's all I have as takeaways, which is plenty for the month of July. Enjoy your summer, and we will see you in August. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks, Jennifer.